Hi, everybody. Much truth, love, and light to you. This is Conspiracy Realist Universe. I hope you are having a namaste. I'm going to be reading The Path of the Masters. This book is a comprehensive statement of Saint Matt, the teachings of the great spiritual masters. After living with such a master for almost 7 years, the author gives an outline of Surat Sab Yoga, the yoga of the audible life stream, which is the scientific system through which the masters attain the highest degree of spiritual development. Here comes my son. I really want to dive right into this book. It looks amazing. But I'm actually going to start with the preface. And go from there. It's now more than 50 years since Julian Johnson wrote The Path of the Masters, first published in France in 1939 under supervision of Dr. Pierre Schmidt. The book has served as a beacon of light by guiding many a storm-battered soul to a safe and tranquil haven on this path to God. It has run through 14 editions and been translated into 30 languages. Its special and undiminished appeal to the spiritual seeker from a Western background has necessitated yet another edition. Dr. Johnson's book is unusual in several respects. It was written specifically for the Western seeker of God by a person of the West who had lived a rich and varied life before coming into contact with the mystic teachings of the East. He was thus in a position to communicate easily with others from the same background. It is perhaps the first modern book to record in English the esoteric teachings of the Eastern Masters with such clarity and comprehensiveness. It describes in the simplest of terms the perennial philosophy which tells how the Supreme, the source of it all, can be realized through realization of the self. Most significantly, it was written under the personal guidance of a spiritual adept of the highest order, a perfect master, who himself stood witness to the spiritual truth expressed within the book. Give me a moment, my daughter's awake. Okay. Most significantly, it was written under the personal guidance of a spiritual adept of the highest order, a perfect master, who himself stood witness to the spiritual truth expressed within the book. Truth at that level does not belong to any particular time, place, or people. It speaks directly to the hearts of all who are earnest in the desire to know, irrespective of their individual backgrounds. Excuse me. That which man communicates from level of his mind or ego, from his individual perceptions, may, however, excuse me again, be limited to a particular temporal or spatial context. And for this reason, we need to bear in mind that the milieu in which the author lived was not the same as ours today. From this perspective, some minor revisions have been made to the 15th edition, which do not alter the substance of the teachings Dr. Johnson propounded. Footnotes and foreword have also been added by the editor to provide an insight into Dr. Johnson's background and a glimpse of his times. The author has explained the universal science of spirituality and its relationship to the many religious systems of the world, as he understood it from the years he spent in India. Consequently, there are several Sanskrit and Hindu terms in the text. These words are italicized, and when their meaning are not made clear by the context, they are explained in the glossary. For ease of reading, terms which occur frequently are italicized only the first time they appear. We must thank all of those who have given time and skills to the various editions and revisions of the book over the years, we wish to end the offering of gratitude and promise to Supreme Lord, who, in his infinite wisdom and mercy, and through his sons, the Masters, has chosen to give shelter to such unworthy souls as we on the tried and tested path to his most glorious home. Preface, that was the preface to the 15th edition. This is the preface to the 3rd edition. This book is now well known to the West and is almost a classic on St. Matt in English. In fact, it has been instrumental in guiding many seekers to the path of the Masters. Dr. Johnson was a man of many parts, and besides being a distinguished surgeon, was also an artist, scholar, pilot, and an ordained minister of the church, and had been in India before as a missionary. He could not, however, rest satisfied with orthodox religion and church dogmas. His soul longed for truth and first-hand experience. He felt keenly that no departed intelligence, however great, could be a substance for a living teacher. But where was one to be found? His quest was soon rewarded, and the guiding forces brought him to the feet of the great master, whose picture adorns the first page of this book. At his feet, this apt pupil imbibed the principles of St. Matt at first hand, and under his supervision and guidance, he practiced devotion and meditation, and the spiritual intercourse went on uninterruptedly thenceforth. Though he was the recipient of considerable attention and grace, he did not accept things blindly, and would quite often say with a half-suppressed smile to his satsangji friends in private conversation, "I am from Missouri." And herein lies the great value of the book. Being a man of strong conviction and penetrating judgment, he has expressed himself rather strongly here and there, but it is all in good faith, true to his profession. He has not hesitated to carry on the operation simply to spare the feelings of the patient. Had he lived longer, he might have softened some of his expressions, but he was destined to leave the world while the book was yet in the press. The great master who inspired this book is no more, and his successor, Sardar Bahadur Jagat Singh Maharji, has also joined him on the other side after finishing his work. The steady demand for the book, however, continues, and it's necessitated a new edition. The present master, Maharaji Sanjit Singh, perhaps on account of his previous associations with the learned author, has kindly entrusted to me the duty of revising and editing the book where necessary. Okay, I'm going to skip the rest. It's just, acknowledgments. I'm going to try to get through this preface. I really want to get into the meat of the book. None is poor, O Bika. Everyone hath got rubies in his bundle, but how to open the knot he doth not know, and therefore he is a pauper. We all have greatness inside, and we don't realize that we're the key to open it. No problem of greater or of more moving import confronts man than that of possible awareness of his own consciousness, the deep significance of the place he occupies in the world as a whole, and of the purpose he should first discover and then pursue. This consciousness of self is the primal metaphysical experience which, whilst causing one to penetrate into one's innermost being, at the same time causes one to penetrate into the universe. We cannot behold the universe as we could some spectacular spectacle before our eyes, for we ourselves are part of it, and we aid in its formation. We are, as it were, fellow actors in a kind of drama, the variations of which depend on the subjective life which expresses its manifold incidents. Our affective states are not to be considered as mere accidents, of interest to no one but ourselves, to which the universe remains impassive, for thereby we penetrate into intimacy and participate in the innermost workings of its life and gain the revelation of its mystery. Human science is peripheric and essentially centrifugal. I have no idea what that means. It makes a study of the visible part of the sensible world, the surface upon which, so to speak, thought reflects itself upon itself. Spiritual science is, on the contrary, essentially centripetal. It studies the internal thought from internal planes, thus to deeper and deeper ones, approaching nearer and nearer to the absolute, from which all life proceeds and which is the one and only reality. It behooves us, wrapped, so to speak, in a kind of icy immobility, not to turn aside from all the tremors of our individual being in our efforts to perceive a world from which we are to be banished, and which is possible of contemplation only by an impersonal intelligence. On the contrary, it is by the very effort of our daily struggle to acquire the most acute consciousness of this perpetual debate with ourself, in which our me constitutes itself, that we are ushered into the very heart of this reality. We moderns are so busy studying the external world that we have, to a great extent, forgotten to study the internal world. We worry about the cure of aches and pains, or asthma and rheumatoidism, and take no thought for the cure of our feverish desires and unworthy ambitions. It is strange that though all must tread the path of life, so few know whither they are going. How little do we know that which we are, how less that we may be. Byron. We wander from the cradle to the tomb, yet know not our true destination, which is not the tomb, but rather the discovery of our super self. For long ages we have accepted the tradition of the existence of two worlds, one the world of appearances, the other the world of existences, and have assumed that as the knowledge of things always means our linking them to our being, the appearances alone are accessible to us. But it is a mistake to imagine that behind those appearances there are real things perceivable to a more penetrating gaze, for a spectator can only behold the thing he contemplates from without. Everything, therefore, is necessarily an appearance. In fact, reality can only be attained within and not without ourselves. Man should turn his gaze within in order to begin that most marvelous of all explorations, since happiness comes only from within. The divine strain hums all around us, yet we are so gross a nature that we hear it not. Only by entering into the divine silence and closing our ears to the world of illusions can we catch the celestial melody, or else we are but yielding to the illusions of our imagination and reaping bitter misery. The discovery of self is first of all an act of inward retirement. It is what is termed the going in. We penetrate then, says Level, into an invisible world, but this discovery occasions anguish, and it is presumptuous to march to the conquest of this inner world without very definite directions, very precise counsels, hence the absolute necessity of a master. Whoever goeth on a pilgrimage needeth a pilgrim for the way, be he a Hindu, a Turk, or an Arab. Maulana Rum. Then the outward universe withdraws and fades away, as does the most beautiful scenery when the play is too dramatic, but soon we experience the joy of the revelation. The universe is now no longer an object outside of ourselves, an enigma to be solved. We no longer contemplate it from without, but from within. Its secret is our secret. This discovery, far from causing us a scene of misery, becomes a source of confidence and of light, and we soon begin to suffer when we refuse to draw from this well. So then, after having lived long in the world as a stranger, he who takes refuge in solitude perceives a new world welcoming him, and by obtains the direct perception of superior planes. In the mystery of solitary intimacy, magna solitudo, solitary intimacy, the individual and the Supreme Being behold each other face to face, for the former returns to his original self. It is, says Hegel, in the very heart of my subjectivity that I discover true reality, and not in the motley spectacle displayed to my eyes. It is contradictory to seek for existence outside of myself, since outside of this self I can find only an appearance for me, but I must seek for it in the very depth of my being, since I at least participate in existence. To understand this truth does not demand violence. It needs only an inward reverence and a willing ear. Truth reveals itself only to those who seek and love it. The great purpose of spiritual training is the absolute union with the primordial self. This regeneration, the second birth, is what Christian theologians have called the descent of the Holy Ghost. The inner illumination is united to an infinite love with the divine. This inner flame, this simultaneous love and knowledge, which when born rises and grows until finally, through a kind of impersonal ecstasy, our whole being is kindled with a supreme desire for union. We call impersonal that state of intuition in which our thought is no longer divided in a thinking subject and an external world, but rather the outer world is abolished by its integration in our personal consciousness. Our personal consciousness is by no means nullified. Nirvana is not the abolition of personality. On the contrary, it is completeness of personality. The summit of reality can only be realized within oneself, said Buddha. A great Shifu master adds that the source of truth is within, and he himself is the object of his realization. And according to Schopenhauer, the essential to life's happiness resides in what one has in oneself. Verily, the principal source of human bliss comes from within, from the very depths of one being. We cannot hope to possess other true riches than those we already bear within us, and we should use them and not neglect them, but they are, alas, so familiar to us that they are no longer appear of any value, and we pursue other tawdry chattels whose possession is denied us. We are so weak that the world is sometimes obliged to rebuff us, to cause us to detach ourselves from the world. The kingdom of heaven is in the heart of those who realize God, and the whole purpose of life is to make God a reality. Verily, it is simpler to find a way to heaven than to find one's way on earth. Hazrat Inayat Khan. And how true is this sentence of the Bible? The kingdom of heaven is within you. But how are we to discover this kingdom? Is this not the main object of philosophy as well as religion? The former, alas, in spite of the numerous chairs where it is taught and the many writings of the greatest philosophers, has not proved to be the source at which the inquirer may quench his thirst. In the first place, philosophy is the heritage of an elite and appeals mostly to the intellect, the mind. It is a dry subject. Furthermore, Philosophizing has been going on for ages. Thousands of arguments and theories have been put forth, but they are only lip-say, as the Indian saints say, for they have no life, and our knowledge of God hath not advanced even an inch. But we have religion. Alas, concerning the latter, we fully agree with the opinion of Kearney's. Religion to the masses means one of the most redoubtable instruments of servitude of the human mind, and the founding of a new religion, however excellent it may be, is but to find a new prison in which to confine the spirit. The consolations religions afford are mostly Platonic, and the number steadily increases of those who nowadays can no longer believe or find any satisfaction in religion for lack of manifest proofs, and on account of the flagrant hypocrisy of so many false prophets or of their militant followers. Wow. That part was powerful. Let me read that again. The consolations religion afford are mostly Platonic, and the number steadily increases of those who nowadays can no longer believe or find any satisfaction in religion for lack of manifest proofs, and on account of the flagrant hypocrisies of so many false prophets or of their militant followers. Nevertheless, the existence of this science of the unknown, the science of the soul, we might say, is a fact, and sooner or later all will ardently yearn for it. Some advanced individuals claim knowledge of it, but those who approach this discovery realize that it is the heritage of an extreme limited number. Up to the present, the Occident have never been granted the privilege of having the revelations of the 8 of the sages of this world in everyday language. Heretofore, the philosophical and spiritual teachings were veiled, and that is why such teachings were classified as esoteric, knowable only to a limited number of the initiated. This initiation was gained through secret revelations, allegorical and symbolic writings, possible of interpretation only by those possessing the key, and the direct teaching of the master to his disciple. Uninitiated mortals were unable to penetrate the arcanum, so that only the advanced spiritual souls could grasp the imaginary of the language, the divulgence of which was prohibited, and the meaning of which without the key was impossible of interpretation. Rare indeed are the Westerners possessing knowledge, and this is but right, for the sages of this world considered it useless to cast pearls before swine, and to deliver the lucubrations of sterile discussion of this infant terrible called the mind to non-prepared egos, directions, counsels, precepts, truth, and lines of conduct for spiritual ascension. Herefore, it was the privilege of a particular class of society to penetrate into spiritual secrets. However, such knowledge has degrees and starts from the simplest counsels to attain the profoundest truths, enabling the future disciple to grasp the truth through his own personal experience. It is nevertheless true that the steps and certain more advanced stages known already to the priesthood were safeguarded in a veiled form in the secret books of various religions of the world. Life refuses to yield up or to display its sublimest secret to the slothful. If you wish to discover the depth of its meaning, why then, you must break up and follow ground and prepare to search for it. And the place to seek it is within. for its treasures will neither be found outside of one's being, nor can the five senses lay hold on them. Are then the methods of yogis hidden? Does a Raja strew his jewels on the highway in a public display? No, he hides them in his deep treasure chambers, in the vaults of his palace. The knowledge of the science of self is one of the greatest treasures a man can discover and possess. It is forthwith to offer it in the bazaars for all and sundry. Let all who desire to attain and to lay hold of this treasure first ardently long for and then seek it. That is the only way, and it is the right way. Knowledge is hidden in order to ward off the superficial, curious inquirer, the mentally unprepared, and perhaps also the spiritually unworthy. The following questions and topics are set forth and explained in this book in modern, simple, and clear language. What is religion? What are its promises and its bestowals? Monotheism, polyism, monoism, pantheism. The statement concerning the main religious movements of the East and the West. The values of ceremonies, rites, and sacred books. What is God? What are his names? The great spiritual hierarchies, the superior planes and high regions, the spiritual guides of the past and present time, the role of the masters, true and false gurus and how to recognize them, the way to realize union with the Supreme Being, the various stages to be passed through by those who are willing to tread the pathway of the Master, how to become a disciple, asceticism, the esoteric constitution of the human being, the chakras, kundalini, the problem of desire, the five provisions or passions and their antidotes, the diverse karmas, reincarnation and metamorphosis. Metaphycosis, death and after death, the various yogas, the importance of the audible life stream. In short, all that concerns the science of the masters. The author has most satisfactorily adhered to the rule of Aristotle. To write well, express yourself in the common language of the people, but think like a wise man. Here is a collection of spiritual wealth of the East revealed to the dazzled gaze of the West. Here we are not dealing with vain promises such as given in most of the so-called philosophical societies in so many books which lead to nothing and nowhere. Nor does one hear when at last nearing the long sought for goal. Oh, this is not for you. You are not advanced enough. It is a secret, and where the soul flies away, just at the very moment when we seem to hold its gleaming splendor in our hands, and all we are left with is one more dead butterfly to add to our molding collection. Sri Krishna Prem. No one from beginning to end. It sets forth plainly the path to the trodden in order to reach the highest goal, the supreme union. Formerly, it was considered a violation to divulge the secret of the inner path according to the yogis. The secret was given to be revealed after having sustained the most difficult and rigid tests and counter-tests. This is quite natural where the Patanjali system is considered because of the dangers of the tests submitted to by the Chelas. In this exposition of St. Matt, contrary to so many yogas, dangers and difficulties do not beset the disciple at any step in the course of his spiritual practices. One reason this book is written now, says the author, at the express command of a great master, is to give to all who may possibly be able to recognize its value some understanding of the priceless truth of the masters of all ages. The ancient screen of profound secrecy is now removed. There is no longer any need for such secrecy. It was not many centuries ago that no saint could speak openly, except at the peril of his own life. The method of the saints expressed here is so safe in itself that no harm can result from giving it out to the whole world, provided it be guarded from any abuse or misuse. There is nowadays an incredible number of books written to build a bridge between the Orient and the Occident. There are innumerable books about yogas published in countless languages, written by either Orientals or come from Occident to familiarize themselves with its trend of thought, or else Occidentals who essayed to penetrate the Eastern spirit. I really want to kind of skip a lot of this. I really want to get into the meat of the book, guys. Only he is alive, O Nanak, who is in tune with God. All others are dead. It's what I say. Everybody's spiritually dead. Now, truth is never a thing that one finds, but is always taught us by somebody. But it is essential that his teaching should not oppress us, but rather should it restore ourself. It should reveal to us our liberty as well as our very meaning of our existence. The battle of life must be won and not run away from. Origen's act of self-castration did not enable him to attain that state that Hindu tradition terms brahmachara, and rigid isolation in a mountain cave will not bring about that inner detachment from the passing show of things, which is the soil in which alone the flower of true wisdom can grow. You can at any time you like retire into yourself. There is no retreat more quiet, more peaceful, and less restless for man than the one that he finds in his own soul. Seeking for truth, first to ardently desire it. Alright guys, I am going to end this here. Should I just read a couple